Good morning, gentlemen. All right. Welcome to another Bloodhound workshop here. So let me finish taking a look at the names in the room. Let's see. I do believe I recognize all the names here in the room. Um, so I'll forego the training workshop introduction there. Um, Let's see. Also, all right, so there were no emailed in questions to get today's workshop started. So, gentlemen, I think you guys all know that that means whoever gets the first question into the Q&A window there for me gets the workshop started for us. All right. So, basically, I am just waiting for the first Bloodhound question to come in to the Q&A window and kick things off. Yeah, good morning, John. All right. Well, just in case somebody stepped away, I am just waiting for Bloodhound questions to come into the Q&A window there and get things started. All right. So John just has a statement. All right, John. Uh, a closed algo based on the super trend flipping. All right. It doesn't sound like that's advanced enough to be closed, but anyways, let's see what your question actually is here. There we go. All right, there's the secret sauce. All right, yeah, point system. So some other metrics here to kind of measure if the flip is really a high probability flip or is it just uh, consolidation, market mess flip. All right, so the information here is slowly coming in. Yeah, so John, you don't need to kind of spoon feed this stuff. If you take your time, and you can write it all out in just one go there. That way things aren't spread apart in the Q&A window. Okay, here's the question. All right. Yeah, so John, I really didn't need, just so you know in the future, I guess, the super trend stuff really doesn't have anything to do with your actual question here. All right, so the question is essentially, yeah, how to reverse the solver outputs when I take it what you mean is when the market is, when the closing price is below the point of control. Um, Low volume. Okay, yeah. So when the point of control is above the closing price, um, you want a long output. Yeah, so I guess being positive would be a long output there versus um, if if the point of control is above. Wait a minute. Um, okay, sorry. So I had to read that a couple times here. All right, so yeah, so if the low volume node is above the closing price, then that being a positive verse, but again, what does positive mean? Bloodhound doesn't output positive. Um, it outputs, long and short, um, um, long and short biases, or yeah, outputs, long and short outputs, simply put. Uh, so it sounds like this has to be split up into two. Okay, I'm gonna delete the first statements up here just to keep the Q&A window kind of cleared out. Um, hmm. Okay, yeah. All right, so let's take a step back here. All right, so the premise of what John's trying to solve here is he's looking for 4 out of 5 conditions to be true, to make a decision whether to go long or go short. Um, all right, so the specific question is identifying when the low volume node of a volume profile, when the, I swear I keep getting these backwards in my head, when the low volume node is above the market versus when the point of control is above the market, then generate an output. So, yeah, so those are two separate conditions there. Low volume node and a point of control, two totally separate outputs. So, if you're trying to combine them, maybe that thinking that way in your head, yeah, you have to split them into two. Um, yeah, so as you mentioned afterwards, yeah, so maybe using 5 conditions to weight it. So yeah, so you you can't analyze the low volume node and the point of control in one solver. no, they're two separate plots, two separate outputs from the volume profile. So, um, yeah, that's right. NinjaTrader did a while back, I guess, not sure if it was earlier this year or just late last year, but they did make some changes to their volume profile, so it's actually readable now. So let's put this on the chart and let's see here. Yeah, they don't give you much to work with, just the point of control. I mean, I don't even have the value area high or low to work with. Man. Um, all right. Well, yeah, let's start doing something here in Bloodhound. All right, so first things first, let's create a file name for today's workshop. There we go, the 20th. All right, so now that we have a file name in place, all of your work gets automatically saved to that file. So since, the way I'm interpreting what you said, you're just comparing the market to the low volume node or the point of control. So I'm just going to go with a comparison solver here. All right, so input A, I'm just going to let that be price there, and I'll just go with the closing price. And for input B, let's go with the volume profile. There we go, volume profile. Yeah, and again, I'm pretty sure these developing plots here still don't contain anything. Oh, there we go. Well, we have initial value area high. Yeah, good. That's right. We do have, yeah, we have some plots and then we have data series. All right. Well, all right. Yeah, let's test the developing point of control again, and let's see. So I don't get many questions on this. So I'm not sure exactly what works with this indicator, what doesn't. All right, so session, just one, minutes, text per level one. All right. Now let's get that indicator on the chart. just double checking to make sure all of the settings match. Okay. Little side comment here. It's kind of weird that they put all the profile, you know, parameters or settings inside the setup section. That's, that just seems odd, but anyways, it is what it is. Okay, yeah, I think we're good here. Let's see what we get. Um, hmm. Okay. Yeah, so, as of last night, right, the point of control was up here, and we can see it was probably about right there, and that's approximately when the close of the bars are crisscrossing. You can just barely see it right there. Um, there we go. Yeah, it looks like that was the point of control at one point based on the closing price crossing that price level. Yeah. All right. So, uh, and all right. And then eventually, there we go. The market open. Now the point of control has adjusted down. All right. So, anyways, I mean, so John, this is just basically one kind of basic, what, analysis of just the point of control. And you would do the same thing, with the low volume node here. So, um, let's see here. Oh, well, actually, you wanted these reversed. So you wanted to know, um, yeah, so if the point of control is above, then a negative. All right, a negative there. So I take that to, I guess, being a short output. So if the closing price is below the point of control, that being above, yeah, if the market is above, that being a negative here. So what we can do is just swap the outputs. That's the easy way. Um, I would say technically it's probably not the correct way. The correct way would be to go into the comparison rules there and actually adjust, adjust the conditions here, right? So in this case, it would be greater than, right? And this would be the inverse there. So really, that's the right way. Well, probably the more proper way to, adjust the comparison solver there. So now when the closing price is above the point of control, you have a short output or a negative output. And then if you're only looking for a negative output, then we could just say only show me, the negative outputs there, something like that, right? So now there you go. There's your negative bias when the point of control is above. Yeah. All right. Sorry. Let me reverse that again. There. All right. So there we go. The point of control is now above the closing price. All right. So there's our negative. So in other words, don't change the comparison rules. Just use the default there. But we could still leave the evaluate on short only. So there. So there's that. And of course, Ninja's volume profile does not have the low volume node there, but I could use, let's say, the value area high instead. So let's copy that and paste that. Actually, I'm going to go with the value area low. There we go. All right, so let's open up the order flow volume profile indicator. And there we go. So we do have, actually, I'll do this. I'll split it this way here. So we'll get a long output if the market is above the value area high, and a short if it's below the value area low. Oh, and remember I copied this, so my evaluate is on short only. Let's put it back to both, and okay, yeah, so none of the closing prices actually got above it until way back here, but we don't see where it actually was historically. There you go. So early in the morning, late at night, yeah, when there you go, when our, this was the volume profile there, the main one developing. There we go. So we do have a few bars here where the close closed above the value area high back there historically. There. Oh, yeah. All right, so I'm going to take a step back here and address the low volume node. Yeah, the low volume node being above the market as being positive. All right. Yeah, so I kind of demonstrated that here. So yeah, all right. I'm just going to use this here. I'll use this. Actually, no. I'll just make another copy of the point of control here. All right, low volume node. So we're just pretending this is the low volume node, even though it is the point of control here. So All right. So if the low volume node is above, we want a positive. So we just want to reverse this here. Right. So as I showed earlier, really, we just need to reverse the short there. And, just for good measure, we should probably keep this one. Reverse the long output, if you're going to reverse the short output. um, um, Although actually what we're interested in is the long output there. All right, and then set this to long only. So there we go. So here's an example. So when the point of control is above, or substitute in the low volume node when it's above, there is your positive output. So, right. There we go. Now, I guess, in case anybody kind of caught this, right? I put, the closing price first versus the indicator. So I guess, the way John stated, the question there, he stated it with the low volume node being first, the low volume node being above or below, or the point of control being above or below. So I could have put the indicator, the volume profile, I could have put the volume profile in input A, so you can reverse this. You could put the indicator first, and then price down below, or whatever else you're comparing against down below there. Because remember, you can always go into the comparison rules and, reverse your conditions here, So, whatever, however you think about it in your mind, whichever comes first, you can put that in input A, and then just change the comparison rules there. So that way the solver is set up, the way you are thinking about it in your head. So, and the way John stated it, he mentioned, the low volume node first, and he mentioned the point of control first, when being compared to price. So, so you can, reverse this here is what I'm getting at. So, there. All right. So hopefully, John, that kind of got you where, or will get you going, get you continued here. There. So, I mean, that's as much as I can kind of interpret from your question. So, if it's not quite exactly what you're after, and you need a better answer, I think I probably need like a screenshot, with an explanation, what you're looking for, from that screenshot, yeah, a screenshot, is worth 1,000 words, as they say. So, all right. So another point here. All All right, so on the second line here, all right, so you have 5 conditions and you're going to weight them from 1 to 2. So nodes only have an output of 0 to 1. They max out at 0 to 1. So, well, actually, no, technically they don't, but the output, what you see here, only goes to a maximum of 1. So on the nodes here, yeah, you can go to the options tab, and so you can increase the output. So I can do a 2x multiplier. Just realize you're not going to see a value of 2 on the output here. So you have to do all that math in your head, right? If you're going to go above 1, the plotted output, then you have to track all that math in your head. So that just makes it more complicated, in my opinion. So, oh, just a moment, folks. Okay, I think everything's okay. Yeah. So, had a power outage this morning, and I think the smoke alarm, is just notifying me that there was probably another little power fluctuation here from the power company. So I think yeah, my UPS did not kick on, so I think we're good to go here. But if the power does drop out, then my UPS is only gonna last 20 minutes. And there it goes again. Yeah, all right, just be forewarned. If my UPS kicks in, then I will discontinue the workshop here so I can power down my computer. And boy, yeah. All right, so where was I? All right, so I was talking about, yeah, the outputs here, of the nodes. Yeah, since you can't see anything, since the plot doesn't go above 1, yeah, it's obviously it's going to be a lot easier to keep in your head, to keep the nodes below 1 here. Yeah, to use this slider, and say, okay, this node, well, since you're doing 5 out of 4, 5 would be 20.2, right? 1/5. There we go. And I'll set this to 1/5. There we go. Set it to 0.2. And then, I think John already knows all this stuff since he has something working. But for everybody else, then we'll just grab the additive node. And actually, I did that wrong. So let me restate this. Since what is needed is 4 out of 5, we're going to set this to 0.25, right? So 4/4 equals 1. So there we go. So now if we look at this, yeah, looks like we're only getting, well, actually, I'm sorry, these are backwards. One's giving us a negative. Yeah, one's giving us a positive there. So combine, yeah, so when the additive node combines them, yeah, we're just going to get, 0.25 or 1/4 positive and 1/4 negative there. And I guess let's plug this guy in and see what this gives us. There. All right, there we go. So with this third node, right, we can see we have on the short side, we have 2 out of 4. So right there, that's 0.5 there. Yeah, we can see we have negative 0.5 there. All right. So yeah, so if anybody's thinking about doing a point system, you know, it doesn't matter how many nodes are connected in. What matters is how many nodes do you need to fire off, a signal or a condition. Do you need 4 of the conditions? Do you need 3 of the conditions? Whatever it is, you just do the math. So if it's 4, you need 4 nodes, you know, all in agreement, 4 nodes, all giving you a short, or 4 nodes, all giving you a long output. Then 4, is 1/4. If you only need 3 nodes, right, then you just put in 0.33, 1/3, all right, so on and so forth. If you need 5 nodes, 5 out of 7, right, then that's 1/5 or 0.2. So yeah. Let's see. All right, so that was my little comment on setting the node output from 1 point to 2. Yeah, well, that can be done. That can be done with the multiplier, but you won't see it on the output. So yeah, so you'll have to do all the math in your head. There. All right, let's see here. Last comment. All right, yeah, it basically, the last comment just falls in line with this second comment there. It just talks about needing 4 out of 5. Yeah. All right. All right, John, I think I got your question answered, at least for now, from from all the questions and comments I see. All right. So it looks like Melroy is up next. All right, let me clear out the Q&A window here. There, I have a new logic template started in preparation for Melroy's question. All right, so give me a moment to kind of read through and digest Melroy's question here. Hmm. All right. So Melroy, yeah, I've got a bunch of questions because there's yeah, a lot. Well, there's some stuff here that I don't know what to do with. So let's pull up a notepad here. Yeah, all right. So before we're getting going here, I'm going to put the MACD on the chart. Yeah. So, one thing to note is when you're working with volume profile or volume footprint type of indicators, you can see how much longer they take to calculate there. So, mm, mm, all right. So we have the MACD on the chart. Yeah. So the question I actually see here um, looks pretty simple here. Um, all right. So we're looking for the MACD to slope upwards, right? And it's going to reach some kind of peak. And then from the peak, it recedes by 2 bars, and I'm not sure what this means here. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with those values there. Um, I guess nothing. It just says, as an example um, there. But I guess to me, the condition is when it recedes, down by 2 bars, yeah, then generate, a cell signal there, right? Pretty simple here. So, right, we hit a peak, and then if we get a 2-bar pullback, then generate a short signal there. So, and the next question is, so I guess my first question is, I guess I don't need to do anything with those values there as an example. But then also, it says as the MACD goes, below the 0 line negative, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. I guess it's just a part of the story there. So if this is something supposed to be done with that, I guess I kind of need clarification on what exactly is done with that, because the signal, the cell signal is already generated. So before, if the MACD goes down, right? So as we can see here, the MACD did go down, but it went back up. So so there would be a cell signal here, 2 bars after the inflection point, and here's another inflection point 2 bars after that, and essentially I think this is just the reverse of that. So this just looks like the reverse of that. So when we get 2 bars, after a peak, then generate a buy signal there. So the only actionable conditions I see, is just waiting for the MACD to roll over by 2 bars, and then generate a signal there. So that's what I'm going to do. So if any of this other extra information here is a part of this, I guess I need to know what to do with it. Because obviously I can give, a cell signal can be generated, 2 bars afterwards, but Bloodhound can't predict the future to identify whether the MACD is going to keep going down. I mean, if you can tell me, if this is part of it, where the signal can only occur if the MACD, keeps going down. I kind of need to know how that's being identified there. So, all right, so let's build what can be built so far. So, there we go. So we're just going to build that part right there. So let's see. So let's start with a threshold solver. And so I'm just simply going to identify, is the MACD above or below the 0 line, right? And we're going to reverse the output as well. All right, so we have the MACD set, and we're just looking at the MACD line. All right, and of course, I'm just going to use the standard, the default periods there. All right. So, right, there's the standard, right? If the indicator's below, actually we need to finish setting this up. Oh, yeah, it is, sorry. This is the threshold solver. So, if the MACD is above 0, right, we get a long. If it's below, we get a short. But let's go into the threshold rules, and we should reverse these conditions like that. Right, there we go. Right, because yeah, short signals are generated when the MACD is above the 0 line. Right, so yeah, so these peaks is when the short signals will be generated. So the MACD has to, so we needed to reverse the conditions here of the threshold solver. Right, so again, we just went into the threshold rules and we just reversed these conditions here. So, all right, so that's identifying, you know, the state of the MACD. So now we need to identify, right, these peaks here, those reversal points on the MACD. We can do that with a inflection solver, like so. And so, once again, in the inflection solver, we're going to put the MACD in there. All right, there's our MACD. And again, we're looking at the MACD line, and we're just using the standard periods. There. Right. So there we go. There's our reversal down and reversal down, reversal up. So now we can combine these two. There. All right. So any reversal downs below the 0 line here, right now there's no short there. But what we need, right, is we need a signal on the second bar. Right? So we need, yeah, a downwards 2 bars, right? 2 bars there. So what I'm going to do is on the inflection solver, right, we have this look back period. If I increase that to 2, right, now we get 2 outputs, right? 2 bars, 2 bars. Here, looky here, we only got 1 bar because the MACD crossed the 0 line, right? So remember, this guy is filtering those signals there. It's filtering that. So it eliminated that one there. So, but what's not wanted is the first, right, an output on the first bar, right? A signal on the first bar is not wanted, right? We want the signal on the second bar there. So now what I can do is I can take a look back node like so, connect that in, and with the look back node, I'm going to turn off the displacement, set that to 0. But with the look back node, I'm going to look back 2 bars here, right? And I need a minimum of 2 bars. Right? Like so. And there we have it. So there's our MACD, there's the first bar, and then we get a signal on the second bar. Right? There's the first bar, signal on the second bar. Right? MACD's below 0. There's the first bar and the second bar. And you know what? Also, yeah, never mind. All right. I was thinking about adding a slope solver, but yeah, the inflection solver takes care of it for us, so we don't need a slope solver. Let's see if I can find an example here. Yeah, I think right there is an example, right? We can see we have a peak, the MACD comes up, but I think it goes back down. So let's take a look at this a little closer. There we go. Spread that way out. Yeah, so the MACD, right, changed directions. It went upwards, but then either it flattened out or it went downward, right? So we can see the inflection solver is actually solving this reversal for two bars for us. Yeah, so we don't actually need to use a slope solver to ensure that the MACD is sloping up, right, at these points here. Yeah, so, all right. Here. There we go. Here's what I'm looking for. So right there, we can see we have a little peak right there. Ah, we have a double peak. Right, there we go. We have a peak, it went down, but then it peaked back up. So after the second peak, there we go. There's our signal on the way down. There. All right, so there we go, Melroy. You know, based on how I understand your question there, um, that's what we have so far. Let's see here. All right, so there's a second comment here. Also, the strategy has an EMA 9 and 14 as an alternative. Okay. So, yeah, I don't know what to do with that. Um, yeah, also, I don't know what a 130 candle signal jammer is either. So, all right, I don't see that as a question. Just sounds like some other comment. So, um, all right, well, that's kind of as far as I can go with Melroy's question right now. So, if you have any follow-ups, Melroy, let me know. You know, if there's anything else to kind of add to this. Um, you know, if there's any other part of this, you know, like the portions here that I didn't know what to do with. Um, if there is anything else you need added, just kind of explain it to me again here. Try and explain it a different way, and we can get that added to what we have so far. Um, let's see here. Let's give this some kind of name here. All right, well, gentlemen, let's see. It looks like we do have some more people in the room, so good. We are at the 1 hour mark. So if anybody has any further questions about building something in Bloodhound, let me know. And it looks like Chris has something for me. All right. Hmm. All right. So it looks like we have a two-part question here. Okay, so so Chris is trying to prevent signals when price is within 30 points of a supply and demand zone. Okay. Yeah. So you are on the right track there. It is the support resistance solver, and I think this is just a lack of um, knowing which supply and demand zone is being fed to Bloodhound. So, that is one of the biggest problems with indicators like this is knowing exactly which supply and demand zone is being fed to Bloodhound, because you can't see that on the chart, right? You just have to trust that um, that the indicator is sending the price data that you're seeing on the chart, and that you're comprehending it. I know when I worked with Will, in testing as an indicator, I had a lot of confusion with that, and sometimes even Will did as well. So I think that's probably the issue there. But I will set up a support resistance solver. Obviously not with his supply and demand zone, but I'm going to set the support resistance solver up with the pivots indicator, right? Because we know for a fact the pivot indicator lines don't change, whereas with the supply and demand zones, those support resistance lines or those zones are constantly changing. So, right. So, so that is kind of difficult to figure out, and it gets really confusing to know which zone is the one that's actively being fed to Bloodhound for analysis. Yeah. So, all right. So let's see here. Let me throw another indicator on the chart, and yeah, I should. Let's reduce this guy here. Tone down the volume profile a little bit. And there we go. All right, that's toned way down. All right, let's just put the regular plain old pivots on the chart. And all right, so we have S1 to work with. Well, actually, yeah, good. We have the PP, S1, S2. Good. All right, let's make a new logic template here. All right, so let's go into our solvers and grab a support resistance node there. So I'm going to stretch out our property inspector here a little bit so we can read everything, all right? Okay, yeah, so we want this to be in headwind mode. So we need to make sure that price is far enough away, you know, for a signal. So next step, let's put in our indicator here. All right, search for the pivot. There we go. All right. So I'm going to select all here. So there we go. We have all of the pivot lines selected. There. And I'm just going to check for, you know, the close of the bar. Or actually, you know what? I'll get a little fancy. Let's just say for a long, let's use the body top, and for a short, we'll use the body bottom. All right. Now for the distance targets, all right, we definitely don't want to be using ATRs, as you know, you can't see ATR distances on the chart. So switch everything to points, and we'll make this 30 and 30, like so. There. All right, so looking at the outputs here, right? So if we're at 30, that's okay. We'll get an output. If at 30 or less, no output, right? Too close, right? Let's see. Also, right, we have here if there is no support resistance lines anymore, right? So if price breaks above the highest zone or the highest pivot point, right? There is no resistance above it, then you get one. So there. All right. So let's see what we have here. All right. All right, so S1 is at 72. Basically, we'll just round it off to 72. So here we can see, let's expand that, there we go. So here we can see, let's look at that closing price, right? 32 to 72, right? That's 40 points away. So we have a long output, right? There's a long output. So, because that closing price is more, it's 40 points away. So we're good to go. Same thing, right, with the close. Well, actually, remember, we're looking at the body top. So even though this is a down bar, we're looking at the body top. So the open of this down bar, also, it's about 40 points away. Now, boom, this bar skyrockets up, and it looks like that's at 43. Yeah, it looks like the close is at 43. Yep, 43. So that's 29 points from S1, right? 1 point shy, and the long output goes away, right? So you're within 30 points, so no long signal going into S1. So there you go. It's all working. So now, of course, the bottom of these bodies, you know, they're more than, let's see, where is it? There we go. I'll shrink this up a little bit. Right? All of these candlesticks are clearly more than 30 points away from S2, so you can go short, right? And the short output is continuous. Look here, we do have one bar and another one bar where there's no short output. So why is that? Well, look at this bar, right? This bar that has kind of a green racing stripe, right? Look at the body bottom. It's clearly within 30 points of S1, so can't go short. There you go. So there's no short output, right? There's no short output here because that body bottom is within 30 points of S1. Same here, right? This candlestick is sitting on top of S1, so you can't go short, no short output. But you can go long, right? The top of these bodies, right, are above S1. So, right, the top of those bodies are above S1. So the solver is looking at the PP line, and there's clearly 30 points from here up to the PP line. So there. There. So that's it in a nutshell there, Chris. You want to make sure that your price to support resistance line mode, make sure the mode is set to headwind, right? And then pick, you know, what bar price are you comparing, you know, to the zones there. Right, I went with the body tops and body bottoms. You might want to just go with the closing price there. And then again, make sure the distances, you know, are set to points there. And you don't have to touch the outputs. So yeah, the default outputs are correct. So, right. So there you go. So that's that. So, yeah. So if it doesn't look like it's working, then it's going to be one of two things. A lack of understanding exactly which zone the indicator is feeding to Bloodhound for analysis. But also, probably the biggest issue is making sure the settings on the chart are the exact same settings being used within Bloodhound. So, yeah, that's the big one right there. All right, let me take a look here at some follow-up questions. Yeah, so as far as your comment about the template in Bloodhound is set to the PFA 60-minute template, that means nothing to me. There's nothing I can do with that information. All right, so we don't teach people how to use other people's indicators, right? We don't teach traders how to use NinjaTrader. I only teach customers how to use Bloodhound. I don't teach customers how to set up other indicators, so so you being the customer of both products, you have to figure out both. You have to learn both products and figure out, exactly how to marry them together. So, now, let's see here. Yeah. Let's see here, this last part here. Yeah, the tricky bit is adding the 0 or 1 at the outputs. Yeah, again, don't touch the outputs. Maybe that's why it's not working for you. Just use the default outputs, right? If you already changed the outputs here, then what you could just simply do is just drop another support resistance solver on the board, right? Drop a new one on there. And let's shrink that up. Drop a new one on there and look at the outputs here of a new solver that has not been touched. And just, don't tweak these settings here, right? Yeah, don't change those at all. So, well, unless, of course, maybe your issue is, for example, let's see if I have an example. Probably not. Let's shrink this up. Yeah, I don't have any examples here, but we'll just have to use our imagination. Let's see, let me stretch this out. All right. So let's say if price is below the lowest zone, or vice versa. If price is above the highest zone there, and you're getting signals when you don't want to be getting signals because, right, again, price is below the lowest zone or price is above the highest zone and you don't want any kind of signals, right? Well, that is what the no support resistance line kind of breakout, that's what this is for, right? So if you set that to 0, then that means you won't get any output when price is above your highest support resistance line or below it. Yeah. So that might be something you need to turn off. I would say very unlikely. Very unlikely. But again, you can obviously, the beauty of Bloodhound is you can set it to 0 real quick, see what kind of changes happen, and if that fixes it, great. There you go. If it doesn't fix it, then just put the 1 back in there, and you're right. And there you go. No harm, no foul. All right, let's get rid of that extra node. There. All right, that one's gone. All right, there was one other thing here I could comment on in your original sentence here. Okay, yeah, so Ninjacators has an RSD indicator. Yeah, I have no idea what that is. But yeah, that doesn't work with the support resistance solver as well. So let's see here. So which support resistance solvers work with Bloodhound? We have no idea. Chris, if you'd like to purchase all those indicators and give them to us, we're glad to test them, but somebody's going to have to go buy them for us because Shark Indicators is not going to buy everybody's indicator just to go test them, right? And Ninjacators is not going to give us all their indicators for free, obviously. Everybody's afraid that everybody's stealing their intellectual property. So, we did years and years and years ago, probably a decade ago, Ninjacators approached us and said, hey, we'd like to work with you guys and cross promote. And, so I tested a bunch of their flagship indicators. And then once they started getting support requests saying, hey, this other indicator doesn't work, that other indicator doesn't work, they decided to drop cooperation with us. They just didn't want to deal with fixing all their broken indicators, and making them compatible for system building. So, yeah. So that's what's happened in the past. And I'm sure, that would have been back with NinjaTrader 7. And, if they weren't willing to get their indicators working for building an automated system for NinjaTrader 7, I'm sure they're thinking the same. They're not going to want to hire a programmer to get their indicators working with NinjaTrader 8 either. So, so the simple answer is some of their indicators work, some of them don't. And my guess is usually when a vendor doesn't make their indicator work within the strategy builder. So here's the real test. If you really want to file a legit complaint with Ninjacators is, build something simple using, where is it? Using NinjaTrader Strategy Builder. Build something simple and say, hey, how come your indicator doesn't work in Ninja Strategy Builder? That's how you can really, put the pressure on them, on some other vendor. So if an indicator works in the strategy builder, it absolutely works with Bloodhound. So actually Bloodhound used to be able to work with indicators, a few indicators that didn't work in the strategy builder. There were some exceptions there where some indicators like volume profile didn't work in the strategy builder in years past. It's kind of nice that NinjaTrader has solved that solution. But before that, Bloodhound could read some indicators that even the strategy builder couldn't read. But nowadays, I think NinjaTrader has solved that issue, and I'm pretty sure the strategy builder can now read all the indicators that Bloodhound can. Yeah. So, yeah. So, anyways, bottom line is, Shark Indicators has no idea what indicators work, what don't, because the other vendors won't give us their indicators for free. So, yeah. All right. Yeah. So I think that was my comment on that for Ninjacators. Uh, yeah, okay, I guess we'll just tackle this again here. So second question is, if there's a support resistance solver, then it should work with supply and demand zones. Again, you gotta talk to the developer. Maybe, maybe not. So, you know, just because you see supply and demand zones doesn't mean it's readable. For example, a lot of indicators, there you go. That's a supply and demand zone. Well, this is not readable. All right, this is a drawing object. It's not readable. So, yeah. So the answer to that is no. It has to be a plot, right? This, right? That S3, S2, S1, that's a plot. That's absolutely readable. So, um, it would need to be, actually, let's go back here. Yeah, let me go back to the first question here, right? I had a question about reading, the volume profile indicator here, right? Reading the point of control. And so we can see for the order flow volume profile, right? There's three plots, right? Three plots, point of control, value area high, value area low. Everything else is a data series, right? So as long as that supply demand zone indicator puts those supply and demand zones into a data series, that also makes it readable as well, right? So yeah, all of this extra, um, all of these extra price points here are tucked into a data series versus a plot. So yeah, there. Okay. So there we go. I think we kind of addressed that, yeah, that question about what's readable and what's not as much as possible. And all right, all right, I'm continuing to go through the Q&A comments here. All right, Chris, I'm going to save your Raven question after Mike's. Let's see here. Yeah, Mike got a question in first. Okay, so Mike, I don't know what you're comparing, what you are actually comparing. So I don't think you should be using the look back node. Um, well, okay, sorry, you say the look back function. Um, yeah, the look back function of what? So yeah, Mike, if you can fill in the missing information, look back function of which solver and what exactly are you comparing. Yeah, I guess the better way is just tell me exactly what you want to do. Instead of hinting at you can't get this to work, you can't get that to work, just let me know exactly what you want to do, and I can answer the question directly head on. Instead of trying to answer your question through a back door. So, to use a bad analogy there. Um, yeah, Mike, just let me know exactly what you're trying to compare there, and I'll give you the exact answer of how I would do it there. So, yeah, I understand you're comparing price to prior price, but that doesn't mean anything. It's too generic. Uh, oh, okay. Yeah, there you go. I think that just kind of filled in the missing piece here. All right, yeah, let me explain. I think I know what the issue is that you're having here and the solution. All right. So let's go with a new logic template here. And all right, hold on. Let me. Man. Um. All right. So I think what Mike is after here is, let me kind of pull something up here. Is checking to see, is the high of this bar, the highest high of the last 10 bars, for example, wherever it is, right? And so, all right, so it's reasonable to think that, all right, let's set all of our input A and input B to price, and let's set that to high, set that to high. All right, I'm just gonna turn the short side off. I'm just gonna focus on the long output here for highs. And so let's say you want to compare to the last 10 bars. And right, you want to find the highest high of the last 10 bars and compare it to the current high, and you get nothing, right? Obviously, this is the highest high of the last 10 bars. This is probably the highest high of the last 10 bars, this one, right? You get nothing. Well, the problem is that this last 10 bars includes the same bar as in input A. That's the problem there. So, so we're waiting on Jeremy to add. What's needed is another input here, another setting here, basically like a displacement setting. Really, more appropriately, right, this is the bar direction. Really what's needed is a start bars ago, right? So you can say, okay, where do we start looking at those last 10 bars? Do you want to start on the previous bar? Is it just one bar ago? Or do you want to maybe start 2 bars ago for some reason? Who knows? But yeah, so really the comparison solver needs a start bars ago. So that way input B, these 10 bars start 1 bar back, right? But it's missing that. So, so what you can do instead, and I'm gonna get rid of that bar direction. There we go. So what you can do instead is input B, we can set that to an indicator, and we're going to use Chameleon. So this is kind of one of those rare situations as to why Chameleon still exists. So there we go. There's Chameleon. All right. So with Chameleon, we can set a look back of 10, like so. And we'll use the high, all right, the high prices for a long output and the low prices for a short output, like that. And now, because we're using an indicator, we have a displacement, right? So essentially, in system development, kind of in programming, the displacement and that bars ago setting from the bar direction solver, they're doing essentially they're doing the same thing. So we can set this to 1, and bingo, there we have it. Yeah, as we all kind of suspected, right? Yeah, these are the highest highs of the last 10 bars. Bingo, there we go. And I'll go ahead and finish this off. There. Let's see. Do we have any lows? Yeah. Oh, of course. That's right. I set my evaluate to long only. There's the problem. All right, set that to both. There we go. So yeah, I figured that would have been the lowest low the last 10 bars because it goes back to here, and it just is. Yeah, there we go. So there we go. Let's see. All right, so yeah, Mike, there you go. Just use Chameleon there, and right, use Chameleon. So it still has a purpose every once in a while. So that's why it's still kept in there, and just you set the look back period here in Chameleon, and of course if you put Chameleon on the chart, and set your look back period to whatever, you'll see that Chameleon is tracking the highest high and the lowest low of X number of bars there, and you'll see the plots just track up, so like this would be the high, and so that high would be tracked forward in time, until this bar makes a newer high. Yeah, so so if you put this on the chart, it'll be visually apparent as to what the highs and the low bounds are tracking for you, based on your look back period. So, all right, there we go. So, okay, yeah, that was an easy one there. There we go. Okay, yep, looks like Mike is good to go. Excellent. Um, cool. All right, let's see here. Back to Christopher's question on Raven here. Um, the right side margin is huge and not adjustable. Hmm. Um, let's take a look. Well, I think, yeah, the simple answer to your question is no, there's no planned upgrades for Raven. It's pretty much in a state, it's not, I don't think it's going to evolve anymore. Um, the only updates that might be done to Raven is if NinjaTrader, makes some changes to their back end and breaks things again. Um, but let's see here. Setup. There we go. Enable that. And you're saying the right side margin? You mean like the width? I guess the width of this panel is too wide. You mean I guess you could shrink it a little bit, but there's really not that much space there. And it's really not, it's not any wider than Ninja's chart trader panel. Yeah, I know the chart trader, you can't shrink it up like that and make it really, really tiny. But yeah, it is kind of nice that you can do that with the chart trader now. So, but no, there's no plans on making that adjustable. So you can always email into support and request that. Um, and yeah, let's see, where else? Somewhere we have a location for, requests. Um, I think it's on Discord. Yeah, I think we have a request section on Discord here. This really isn't my department here. This is more of, I guess, marketing's department. Um, oh, well, yeah, there's Bloodhound feature request in Blackbird. There isn't one for Raven specifically. So I would suggest doing any Raven requests in the Bloodhound one, right? Because Raven does come for free with Bloodhound. Yeah, so when you purchase Bloodhound, Raven comes free. And that's the reason why I do answer Raven questions in the Bloodhound workshop, because it does come for free with Bloodhound. So, yeah, so Raven gets a pass there in answering strategy questions in the Bloodhound workshop there. So, yeah, that's what I would suggest there. And yeah, you might also, I don't know if you can do any filtering with Discord. I'm not really a Discord user, but who knows? I would think you could probably do some searches there and see if other users have requested the same thing. So, yeah. But again, yeah, to answer your question. I don't know of any planned um, what any planned work on Raven. So there. All right, so there was a little side question. All right, Dean just had a little funny comment there. Well, if everybody knew everything about, about Bloodhound, nobody would come to these workshops. So, yeah. All right. But you know what? Dean kind of raises a good point here. Trying to explain what you're looking for is definitely a challenge here, especially when it comes to trading, because there is no official organization that sets standard terminology for trading, right? Unlike medical school, right? There's clear cut terminology in medical school for every part of the body. Same thing in becoming a lawyer, right? In legal classes, there's clear cut terminology, legal terms that mean the exact thing. With trading, no, trading's freaking all over the board. It's a mess. Uh, so, with that being said, taking a screenshot of a chart, annotating a chart, saying, hey, right here on this bar, I am, you can add some text, with your little explanation. That is definitely the easiest way and the best way to kind of explain what you're trying to do to anybody, not just for these workshops, but any other trader. Visual annotated charts really does speak 1,000 words in explaining some kind of concept that you're trying to get across. So definitely, it may seem like, oh man, it's going to take so much time to mark up my chart, put the text down, but it's far better than struggling with trying to get the right words out, and explaining yourself clearly. So, um, yeah. All right. So let's see here. All right, that was Dean's comment. And all right, yeah, those are just some comments from Chris. Yeah. Well, let's take a look at where we're at, and we're almost at the 2 hour mark. Boy, all right, time really flies when you're answering questions. All right, well, guys, normally at this point, I would give everybody about 10 more minutes to see if there's any other questions, but I do have some other tasks I have to get to today. So, yeah, so I'm actually going to close up shop right now. So, yeah, since we hit that 2 hour mark. Let's see here. I do have a question for the Blackbird workshop tomorrow. So just to kind of give you a little teaser. So this question was emailed in here for Blackbird on setting up a stop entry order. Excuse me. Question is about, placing a stop entry and then moving that stop entry or trailing that stop entry to the next, signal bar, and then canceling it after 2 bars, so that will get tomorrow's Blackbird workshop started there for us. So if you guys have any Blackbird questions for tomorrow, All right, there's Blackbird on Fridays. Then again, you can email your questions in for Blackbird, and I'll get them answered tomorrow. Or of course, you can come jump in the room tomorrow as well. So just keep in mind there are two separate registration links for these. So the link for Black Bloodhound does not work for Blackbird. So if you want to attend the Blackbird workshop and get the correct Zoom link, then yeah, just register there. So man, my throat feels like it has a needle in it. All right, guys, with that, my voice is telling me to quit while I'm ahead. So, all right, guys, if I don't see you tomorrow, then have a good weekend, and I'll see you guys next time. All right, bye-bye, everybody.